Welcome to Desperately Seeking the 80s. I am Meg.
And I am Jessica. And Meg and I have been friends since 1982. We got through middle school and high school together here in New York City, where we still live.
And where we podcast about New York City in the 80s. I do Ripped from the Headlines.
And I do pop culture.
Guess who we're missing?
Who?
Alfie.
I know, he's scratching at the door.
Let's let him in.
Alfie, come on in, buddy.
And guess what I forgot to tell you about?
Oh, I'm so excited. What?
I am the class correspondent for the Nightingale Bamford School. Yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking, don't you, right now?
What are you thinking?
About a...
We have to cut that.
Okay. Sorry.
People do listen to this.
Okay. Sorry. So you said I am the class correspondent. Okay. So what does that entail, Meg?
That means I actually don't have to ask people for money.
Oh, thank
God. When I've been class agent before, which I'm fine asking people for money, blah, blah, but I'd much rather organize get-togethers and...
Or do you do the newsletter?
Yeah,
kind of
get
thing?
news from people. So that is my job. And I'm kind of excited about it.
That's
actually
fun.
And I reached out recently to Amanda Lotus.
Hey.
Hey, girl. Because
hey.
It actually had nothing to do with the podcast that I was reaching out to her for. But then she said, by the way, when are you going to do another one of those things at your apartment with everybody who graduated from our class? And I was like, you know what? We should just do that.
Oh my God.
Do it.
Yes.
Even if, it's not like a banner year, like a 0 or a 5 year.
Why don't we just call it like still hanging in?
Yeah. Whoever's around, it doesn't have to be quite so massively organized. It could just be
a cash hang. Class of 87.
And maybe you'll help me. Maybe you'll help me.
Yeah. Of course I'll help you.
You'll partner with me because we're such good partners.
Yeah. I mean, should we make it a podcast thing and be like, I don't know, we descend on the class of 87 and tell us your best weird story from the 80s?
That's brilliant. Come with a great story.
Yeah.
And we will record it and we will put it on the podcast. Oh my God, we could have an entire episode that's just the girls from 87. Jessica, when I say to you...
When you say, hey, I say, oh. Okay, go. What when you say, sorry.
Okay, we're punchy because this is the second one we recorded today.
Yes.
When I say to you, Long Island, what comes to mind? Can I help you out a little bit?
Well, I have a lot of answers. I'm
right,
just
that's the
sifting
thing.
through.
That's the point.
Well, there are two dumb things that come to mind. One is that it's not Long Island, it's the Guyland.
Okay.
And Strong Island.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of Long Island growing up, going to my parents' best friend's house in Port Washington.
Right.
In Sands Point, Port Washington.
Lovely. Yeah.
And it was, even though I went to summer camp and it's not like I hadn't, it's not like I was like stuck in the city and a fresh air fund kid. It was still always like, oh my God, they have so many trees here. What the fuck is going on with these trees? And they lived right near the IBM Country Club, which was, even at that tender age, I was like, this is a bit lavish. What is going on? So I think of the IBM Country Club and Sands Point in Port Washington.
I mean, we do a podcast about New York City in the 80s, and certainly Long Island counts as a suburb of the city.
Well, when we mention bridge and tunnel, it certainly counts.
Right. But when you start going deep on Long Island, there's so many different parts. We could have a whole other podcast just about Long Island.
Long Island is a weird place.
And
it's
so
big.
Eclectic. And
yes.
It's so many different parts of it.
Like we could do a whole thing on Massapequa, a.k.a. Matza Pizza, right?
And we've got the Hamptons and Fire Island and Shelter Island. These are all very different places. We've got Stony Brook. We've got Jones Beach. We've got Garden City. I mean... Right?
The list goes, the malls. malls.
malls.
The list
Westbury
goes on.
Plaza Mall.
Oh my God. Yes. So
Okay.
yes, it is a rich vein we have yet to tap.
All right.
But I think you're about to tap
This is
it.
a very specific Long Island story. And I think you're going to recognize the Long Island that I am going to be talking about because I'm going to be specific about it. But it's not next to the water. Let's put it that way.
There's Huntington.
How did you
Hewlett,
guess?
There's the 5 towns.
Right. Okay.
So.
My sources are Newsday, New York Times, and Anatomy of a Murder.
Murder most foul.
Right. So that's a bit of a giveaway. Not a shocker, though.
Just hit me with it, baby.
Okay.
What is it?
In the summer of 1983, 18-year-old Lisa Marie Weaver was having car trouble. Without any other way to get around, she started walking from her home to the nearby mall, Roosevelt Fields, which is in Garden City, about an hour away if you take the Long Island Railroad. She regularly passed the Shell station, and Matt Solomon, who was working there as a mechanic, would whistle and call out to her. And that's how they started dating.
Well, that's a great foundation for a safe dating relationship.
He doesn't kind of reminded me when I was reading it of like Papa Don't Preach a little
Very
bit,
much
that video.
So. Yes.
And like some Billy Joel song, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys hanging out on the corner, whistling at girls, going by, possibly molesting them, putting them in a bag, running.
Hey, don't get ahead of it. All right.
See?
No. That's actually not the story at all. All right. So Lisa is 5'3". She's a cheerleader and a dancer. Her hair was big. Her nails were done. She loved to ski in the Poconos.
So she wasn't Lisa Marie. She was Lisa Marie.
Sure.
She was Lisa Marie. All right.
She loved to ski in the Poconos and shop in the little boutiques on the docks of Montauk Point.
Mount Airy Lodge.
She videotaped all my children on VHS every day so she could watch it that night.
Cute.
Her favorite bands were Pink Floyd, the Beatles, and Chicago. She suffered from asthma, but that didn't stop her from being active. She loved to travel and made sure to bring her inhaler. After graduating, you're sighing. You're like, this is not going to go to a good
I'm
place.
seeing a suffocation in short order. I'm worried about Lisa Marie already. Oy.
After graduating, she continued to live with her parents and got a job as a loan processor at a local bank. Matt, who we've met, Matt Solomon, was 5'11" with a handlebar mustache.
Get out of town.
I kid you not.
Oy vey is mere man.
He was working as a sheet metal worker and making good money. So much so that he was able to get Lisa a $5,000 engagement ring when he proposed on Christmas Eve, 1986.
That's a lot of money in 1986.
A lot of friggin' money.
Jesus. All right. Nice ring.
Yeah.
You know what that reminds me of? Fran Drescher, 80s, told a story about how when she was young and everyone was getting married, they didn't care about how good the diamond. She was talking about like how everyone got very obsessed with the quality of the diamond. She's like, just the bigger, the better. And she was like, she had a quip about mine was so huge, but it had so many inclusions. If you looked in it really closely, you could still see the miners in there chipping away. Fran.
Oh, she's very funny. All right. So they were married on October 25th, 1987, and honeymooned in Hawaii. Their new home together was in nearby Huntington Station, which you mentioned just a second ago, a 30-minute drive from Garden City. Huntington Station was a little more rough around the edges than Garden City. It had a bit of a crack problem.
Just a wee crack problem.
But this was a starter home, and they could afford it. Lisa was still working as a loan processor and fielded calls daily. When she still lived with her parents, a guy named Rob called to get a loan for a new Corvette. He liked the sound of Lisa's voice so much that he kept calling back. Now, Lisa told him she has a boyfriend, she's getting engaged, but Rob didn't seem to mind.
Rob, I got a boyfriend. You got to go away.
He kept calling.
Bad Rob.
He even managed to get Lisa's home number. But that was before she and Matt moved to Huntington Station. On Christmas Eve, 1987, it was their 2-month anniversary and exactly a year since the engagement. Lisa got lobsters and Corbel champagne.
Corbel!
And planned a romantic dinner. Now, it was Christmas Eve, and her mother, Diane, wanted to go to midnight mass. So Lisa told her mom to get dressed, and she'd pick her up at 11 p.m. after she and Matt had their celebration.
She didn't arrive, did she?
Hours later, at 5:30 a.m., Matt approached a fireman at a fire that had broken out in Huntington. He showed the fireman a photo of Lisa and asked if he'd seen her. The fireman said no, and Matt said Lisa had gone out for a walk the night before and hadn't returned. In the meantime, Diane, Lisa's mom, woke up on her couch where she'd fallen asleep, still dressed for mass. Her phone was ringing. Lisa was missing. Both Matt and Lisa's large, tight-knit families converged with friends and neighbors at their apartment to hear from Matt about what had happened. He said he and Lisa had dinner and drank 3 bottles of Corbel.
Oops.
They had sex. Then Lisa wanted to watch All My Children, which she did every evening. When Matt fell asleep on the couch, Lisa was furious that he was ruining their special night, and they started fighting. Then she stormed out into the night without a coat or her purse or her inhaler. Matt fell asleep waiting for her to get back and only panicked when he woke up at 5 a.m. and she still wasn't back. Now, it was a cold winter, below freezing outside, and there was fresh snowfall, so everyone was very concerned that Lisa couldn't survive the night if she got lost or had an asthma attack. She didn't even have a coat on. Matt was certain she'd been abducted. He bought a shotgun and organized his biker buddies, the Blue Knights, into a search party. Matt led them into abandoned houses, rousing homeless crack addicts, looking for some sign of Lisa. And he got in front of every camera he could find, begging the public to help him find her. Quote, "Yes, I know she's alive. I can't give up hope. I'll find her. I promised her mother I would." Dozens of volunteers searched forests of eastern Long Island in the bitter cold. And remember, this is the days between Christmas and New Year's. The local news was all over this story, especially when they heard that Diane got a call from Rob wishing her Merry Christmas.
Wishing Diane Merry Christmas?
Yeah.
Oof.
Now, Diane had never met Rob, so this caused some alarm. But because of all of her work records were on paper in file drawers, it wasn't so easy to figure out who this weird guy Rob was. They just had to go through everything. They couldn't just do a search. You know what I mean? Then, 6 days after she went missing, Lisa's cousin Steve spotted a bunch of garbage bags off the side of the road along Pulaski Highway.
Oh, no. Nothing good ever happens on Pulaski Highway.
The first few bags he kicked were full of leaves, but the 5th one wasn't. When he tore it open, he saw Lisa, naked and frozen in the fetal position. When the police arrived, they set up a very wide perimeter on both sides of the highway. When Steve saw Matt drive up, he called Matt over to him so he could break the news in person and so Matt wouldn't be exposed to Lisa's body. But when Matt got out of his car, he ran across the highway, away from Steve, and straight towards her body, intercepted by police just before he reached her. Matt was despondent, as was Lisa's family. Their worst fears had come true, but now the police had some evidence to work with. Lisa's engagement ring was missing. Was it an abduction and robbery? They found the mysterious Rob. He claimed he had seen news about a missing Lisa Solomon, but he only knew her as Lisa Weaver, and he had no idea what she looked like. And his alibi checked out. So he was just a weirdo, but not a murderous weirdo.
Weird Rob.
And then, on January 5th, the police searched the trunk of Matt's car. There was a carpet remnant in the trunk, the fibers of which matched fibers tangled in the garbage bag ties that sealed the bag on Lisa's body. When Matt was arrested, he said, "Any news on Rob?" "Sorry, Matt.
No, Matt.
Nothing good for you."
Not a criminal mastermind, Matt.
And soon after, he confessed. Kinda. He told a very different story of how he and Lisa had fought. She had turned violent, bit him, and he'd hugged her until he realized she was dead. Then he put her in the tub, walked down the road to the 7-Eleven to buy the garbage bags, stripped her naked, removed her ring, stuffed her in the bags, and drove her to the field 2 miles away. The trial was covered live on News 12 Long Island, and anchors Carol Silva and Lee Tyrell gave running commentary. The prosecution depended on ear witness Raymond Padilla, the landlord who lived just below Lisa and Matt. He described hearing Matt shouting and Lisa crying, a shuffle of feet, quote, like one person catching up to another and then a bang against a wall. The defense claimed Lisa had a temper and that her intoxication contributed to her death.
Yes, we're both seething.
The prosecution said the chokehold was 2 minutes. The defense said it was a mere 20 seconds.
Oh, a light chokehold.
Exactly. In the end, the jury of 11 men and 1 woman found Matt guilty of depraved indifference and sentenced him to 18 years to life. So they bought his story. Both the Weavers and the Solomons were furious at the sentence. Matt's father screamed, "You got your pound of flesh!" While Lisa's uncle told reporters, "We didn't win anything. We don't have Lisa back. We lost. We don't have our girl." In 2019, Matt was released from Otisville after 31 years and 7 attempts at parole. He managed to get married twice in prison. He had a daughter, and a big part of his parole request was so he'd be able to spend time with his baby grandchild. And he walks amongst us, Matt Solomon.
So he admits to doing all of these terrible things.
Yes.
And he is not found guilty of murder.
No, they believe that she contributed to her own death by being drunk and having a temper.
I actually have no words. And I know you. I know how furious you were when you read this. So now I've caught the fury. This is a hideous story.
I mean, do I hope that this doesn't happen nowadays? I don't know for sure it doesn't. I mean, but it certainly was of a time where people were like,
she was asking for it.
And also, people couldn't understand what looked like a motiveless crime. Like, if he did this,
there had to be a reason.
Yeah. And the reason had to be her because there was no benefit in it for him. He wasn't getting a large inheritance. You know what I mean? There was no, he didn't have a life insurance, or he didn't have another relationship going on. There was no, so it seemed like a motiveless crime. People didn't understand that sometimes men kill women because they hate them.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that was hard to get through to people.
Well, grim.
I thought you might be interested in this. Her friends had a lot to say about him. And some of this came out in the trial, some of it did not. But they talked about how sometimes she didn't want to go out with him because she was tired or whatever. This is when they were dating. And that she would say, "Oh, well, I'm washing my hair. I just want to stay home and watch all my children," or whatever. And that in that case, he would insist on coming over and watch her wash her hair. He also accompanied her to the ladies' room whenever she went to the ladies' room when they were out together. And some people were like, oh, that's so chivalrous of him.
No. I'm glad that now it is common knowledge that isolating people is a big red flag for abuse. Because that's what good old Matt Solomon was doing.
Yeah, and now he's
walks among us with a
granddaughter.
Who are these people who want to be married to someone in prison who killed someone, have conjugal visits, and have children with them? Like, what brain? I know there's a whole thing about this. I understand you can look it up. There are studies, but I don't care. It's so crazy to me. Like,
I think part of it has to do with, honestly, control.
That they're in prison and I don't have to deal with them. Yes.
I can have my own life. They aren't dating anybody else.
By choice.
So I get to have my
cake and
eat it too. And I get these love letters and I get to have sex whenever I want to. And I don't have to have sex when I don't want to. I think that's what it has to do with. And I think there is a strange sort of romanticization of the bad boy who I can save. Yes. I understand you. Nobody else does.
Right. Yes.
So
I can see your goodness. You were wrongly accused or
simplistic
whatever.
Answer to your question, but it is a thing that happens. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Creepy. So my story today comes from a mixture of the New York Times and court records.
Ooh, court records.
Court records. But as with all things that I'm interested in, my story begins with a book.
Okay.
In 1980, David Howard Bain published a book, or it was published for him by Methuen Publishers. And the title of this book was Aftershocks, A Tale of Two Victims. So,
what year?
1980.
Okay.
It's about
true crime?
Yes, it's about a murder that took place in Queens.
What?
In 1977.
Okay.
But there's a twist here. We frequently talk about Murder Most Foul, and it's usually, like lunatic on the loose, crazy psycho cooks people and serves them.
On occasion.
My all-time favorite story, by the way, of I'm going to feed the evidence to the homeless people in the park. That's a great idea. But this comes from something that really struck me. In the 70s, one of the biggest tragedies in the United States was the treatment of the Vietnam vets coming home and how they were reviled. They were blamed for participating in a war that most of the country didn't agree with. They got a very raw deal.
I agree.
In addition to that, because there was no care being given to these guys by the government, and they had been through such horrors, their mental health was unbelievably compromised.
And so many of them are still with us. And have we done any reparations for that period of time? It's just horrible.
Agreed. Well,
it's not their fault.
Oh, hell no. However, in 1977, a former Marine, 31 years old, raped and murdered a 17-year-old South Vietnamese woman.
Oh my God.
Living in Flushing. Her refugee family had come to the United States to find a better life after the war in Vietnam.
Did he know her?
No. The murderer, his last name was Kahan, he had a psychotic break and thought that he was back in the jungle when he saw this girl, or that's what was decided. And
is that what the defense said?
That is what he said and what the defense was. He did not claim not to have done the deed. He said, I did it. At his trial, psychiatrists for the prosecution, to your point, Meg, and defense agreed that the former Marine was insane when he committed the crime, and the court found him not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was institutionalized. This story caught the attention of David Howard Bain, who was doing various jobs, including playing the piano in a wine and cheese shop in Port Washington, Long Island.
Oh my gosh.
He was taken with the story, and he was a fledgling writer, and he felt that it had a lot of connection to stories like Friendly Fire that had became a famous film. He got in touch with the victim's father, and he got in touch with the former Marine, Louis Kahan, in Creedmoor State Penitentiary, State Hospital. They both agreed that they would participate in the writing of this book.
Wow.
The father wanted his daughter's story told, and he wanted the repercussions of war to be understood. And Kahan felt the same way. The result of Mr. Bain's research is Aftershocks, A Tale of Two Victims by Methuen, New York. The book traces the events leading up to the death of the woman, the parallel lives that she and Mr. Kahan led in Southeast Asia and the United States, the disposition of the case, and in an appendix, facts about help for both veterans and Vietnamese in this country. And I was thinking, why would the dad agree to do this? Well, in his country, prior to coming to the United States, he was a philosophy professor. Again, so interesting about what happens to people's careers when they move to the United States after wherever they're from. He described his daughter as the average American teenager living in an apartment project in Flushing in Queens, which is where Mr. Kahan was living, and he was experiencing the rejection felt by other veterans who had been unable to adjust to life back in the States. For 2 years, he had been unable to sleep. When he saw his victim, quote, his mind exploded. So
he raped and murdered her?
Yes.
Is it presumed that he was doing things like that when he was in Vietnam?
It is not discussed, but I was interested by this, and I was like, this is my favorite thing whenever I do research.
It's not like he mistook her for a soldier.
No, I think that he saw atrocities. He might have been engaging in them. Who knows what he was ordered to do or not ordered to do. And yeah, it triggered very specific behavior that isn't really covered about what he did or what he did not do.
You see my point, right?
Of course I see your point.
It's not like he tried to shoot someone who he thought was a combatant.
No. And you know, he most certainly did not have a gun on him. You know, that was not part of the crime. But I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just saying that this was one of the many, aftershocks of the war in Vietnam. But I read all of this and I was like, there just is something a little weird here, because there's a lot of discussion in the Times article about how it was determined that he was not mentally stable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then I found a transcript of the case.
Okay.
And what happened afterwards, because there's a second transcript where Mr. Kahan is trying to get parole. But here's what I found out. You ready for this?
Yes.
I'm just going to read from this transcript because it's so bonkers. So there was a group of psychiatric professionals who deemed him unsafe, unfit, cuckoo cuckoo, he's off to Creedmoor. One of these was Dr. Robert Domino, a psychiatrist familiar with the defendant's case history. He made a case for him being released in 1981.
In 1981, after a year of incarceration? Are you kidding me?
So pursuant to the order from a judge that was influenced by Robert Domino and other psychiatric professionals, on August 2nd, 1981, he was released to his mother's care in his home, and he commenced outpatient treatment at the clinic on July 1st, 1981. And then he was hired by Creedmoor Hospital under the CETA program to work as a plumber. On August 2nd, 1981, an incident occurred involving Amy Angial, which resulted in the defendant's arrest for alleged assault. He was incarcerated, awaiting trial and verdict. In examinations under CPL article blah, 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 and examinations by 2 different psychiatrists, he was found fit to proceed to trial. And a bench trial resulted in a verdict of not guilty of assault, but guilty of harassment. And he was sentenced to time served.
What the actual fuck?
Right. During the pendency of the trial, now remember Robert Dimino? He wrote a letter to the judge in charge on August 6th, 1981, where he included affidavits from himself and the woman who was assaulted, Amy Angial, asserting that Louis Kahan suffered from a dangerous mental disorder. This is the same guy who said he was okay, let him out.
Okay.
That he suffered from a dangerous mental disorder and urged that he be recommitted. The position was at a 180-degree variance from his previous position.
I'm sorry, was he the lawyer?
No. The psychiatrist who said
psychiatrist.
He said he's not crazy, you should let him out.
And now
he's like put him in. So the defendant
is not crazy, he's clearly dangerous.
The defendant was then transferred from the custody of the Department of Correction back to Creedmoor. Then
So maybe the psychiatrist was just trying to get him out of a jail and into a psychiatric facility. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it was just about the location of his incarceration. Is that possible?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no. In assessing whether the defendant currently suffers from a dangerous mental disorder or is mentally ill, an examination of his personal life at the time of his arrest on August 4th is instructive. Absent the incident of August 2nd, which led to his arrest and the reversal of Dr. Dimino's opinion, this hearing would not have been ordered. The facts adduced at this hearing were previously undisclosed in court. Get ready for this. During separate interview examinations, the defendant informed both of the psychiatrists examining him that Dr. Dimino had introduced him to Amy Angial approximately 14 or 15 months before his release. Thereafter, she came frequently to Creedmoor, and the two would spend an hour alone during her visits. So remember how I was saying to you, who are these women and why do they want to hang out with criminals or prisoners? Here's Amy. She now has been introduced to this guy while he is incarcerated.
To what end?
Well, after his release, the defendant went to her home on weekends. Both his mother and Dr. Dimino knew where he was. Indeed, Dr. Dimino joined them on Saturday afternoons, and the 3 spent the balance of the day together. On the 4th weekend, Kahan, our murderer, asked Amy to marry him, and she accepted his proposal. News of the engagement was not well received by Dr. Dimino.
Okay.
Dr. Dimino, okay, this is...
What did Dr. Dimino want to happen?
Well, here we go. Dr. Dimino was Dr. Demento because
awesome.
Dr. Dimino had been married to Angial's identical twin sister. Each sister had been his patient.
Oh my God.
According to Kahan, Angial told him that she had a 15-year relationship with Dr. Dimino before, during, and after his marriage to her sister. She said that she had filed an assault complaint against Dr. Dimino in 1978, but that he had persuaded her to withdraw it. Dr. Halpern, who is one of the examining psychiatrists of this whole situation, testified that Angial told him that she failed to keep her first appointment with him, who she started going to, in October 1981 because she was assaulted and bruised by Dr. Dimino.
Jesus Christ.
The Sunday after the engagement was a hectic day for Louis Kahan. Upon awakening, he discovered that while he slept, Angial had met a suitor and brought back a gift from him. So now we're back to this whole thing about, what have you done to make this happen to you? Well, like with Lisa Marie.
Okay.
Remember, like the Corbell, and I'm just like, Amy is potentially now someone who could be viewed as causing her own problems.
Got it.
In his anger, Khan pushed Angial by the shoulders to the bed, put his hands on her neck, but he did not hurt her. one of the psychiatrists says that this shows that he has controlled behavior. He did not hurt her, and so it wasn't a problem.
Oh my God.
That morning, Dr. Domino telephoned and ordered Kahan out of the house, challenging his right to disrupt Dr. Domino's relationship with Amy. He called the police, who arrived shortly thereafter. She insisted that she wanted Kahan to stay. The police had her sign a statement. Dr. Domino called twice more. Then she continued to ask Kahan to stay, and Domino was asked to go. The next day, Kahan reported the incident. He was advised not to see Amy or Dr. Domino and to return the next day for further examination. This goes on and on.
I don't know who isn't crazy.
See, this is what's so great about the story. So they're all nuts. Dr. Domino is Dr. Demento. He has a control issue. He has introduced Kahan, a murderer, to his adulterous girlfriend of his twin sister of his wife so that he can monitor and observe whatever their relationship is, decided that he didn't like what was going on, and then tried to get him recommitted. So this is a whole...
How many doctors have we talked about on this podcast who are actual total creepoids?
I feel like the number of people who go into psychiatry who are drawn to it because they're a little cuckoo cachuchu in the melon, high numbers. So anyway, I know that I've just been reading, but here's the thing. So I read this. This is why I love research. And you were talking about Ben and sitting there doing research and the long tail 80s. Here's the perfect example.
Yeah.
You've got, Kahan entered the military in 1967. And he was in Vietnam from early days. It's 1977, he murders this poor girl, this Vietnamese girl. And then Dr. Demento gets involved. And his control issue is played out by ricocheting Kahan in and out of Creedmoor.
Oh my God.
Eventually, Kahan is left alone.
Okay. Did the doctor go to jail?
I have not gotten there yet.
Oh my God. There's a sequel.
There's a sequel. There is a sequel to this whole story.
Do you promise?
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? This is now my favorite thing. But the fact that Domino,
this is like a soap opera.
I know, her twin sister. And I was thinking about Lisa Marie. I was like, this is like General Hospital. All my children. It's perfect. So yeah, this should have been Bane's book, in my opinion.
Right.
So this is the book that's waiting to happen.
Oh my God.
If I had an extra 5 minutes in my life, I'd be like, this is the one I'm going to write. Put it on the stack of ideas. But there is a sequel here. We're going to find out what happened to Dr. Domino, what happened to Amy, and where Kahan is today.
Oh,
does he
I'm
walk
so
amongst
excited.
us?
Well, our tie-ins, it's like they write themselves.
It really is astonishing.
I swear to everyone who is listening to this, we never consult with each other. We go out of our way to make sure that the other person doesn't know the story that we're telling because we want everything to be really fresh and fun. But it's almost like, I don't know, we're witches or something.
Well, that's established.
That goes without saying.
Duh.
But oh my God, how could it be
let's
better?
You can't. Let's
these
list
two
this.
stories.
This is Long Island.
Long Island.
Okay. You've got
soap opera.
Yeah. Yes, you certainly. One is
We've
living
got
the
strangling.
Soap opera. We do have strangling.
Women being blamed for their own assault.
Yes, exactly. But Amy was in on this in some way. Like, Amy knew what was going on. She had been with Domino for 18 years. To have him set her up with this Looney Tune?
Jessica,
sorry,
you can't
Mr.
blame
Kahan.
the victim.
But she's barely a victim. Like, nothing actually happened to her.
Let's find out. I would not be surprised if there was a little bit of messing with the head thing. I mean,
clearly Domino was fucking with her head.
Exactly. And what's his face, jumped on her and choked her. And they're like, well, It wasn't that bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, yes. I guess because our expectations for violence are so elevated at this point
Fair.
that it's like, well, she wasn't killed and there were no bruises. It's a win. But so the point being that there wasn't enough even to file a report. There wasn't anything that she could
evidence,
right.
even though it was clear what had happened, which I think
he scared the shit out of her, but
I
he
think nowadays
did not physically.
You touch a woman's neck
yes.
and you go to jail, please.
Under the best circumstances, yes, you do. But anyway, so there's a lot of tie-in here. There's a lot of shenanigans in
Long Island in the 80s.
Yes. So and women who want to be with men who are in prison.
Oh, was that in the first one? Oh, right. Because he married twice. Twice.
I can't even with them.
I know. Conjugal visit.
What? Who's like, well, obviously a lot of people who are like, where I want to have sex? In a weird prison sex room.
I'm not really sure why when you kill your wife, you're allowed to have a conjugal visit with a
new
woman.
Wife.
I don't see how that should be approved. It's not like he's in jail for drug charges. He's in jail for killing his wife.
I don't understand how conjugal visits happen at all.
And you're a lawyer.
In prison. It's a punishment. No sexy good times for you. No.
The rest of us have to work hard for it.
I know, seriously. You just sit around and some schmuck comes and wants to have sex with you. We have to go online on apps, goddammit. Fuck you. No, well, it was the 80s.
Okay, before we forget, this is our new call to action, our new ask of all of you beautiful people. If you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed any of our episodes, will you please right now text a friend of yours and say, check this out.
And include the link to the podcast in your
text. And you
text.
can do that. You can press share. There's a thing on, if you listen to Apple Podcasts, and there are 3 little dots on the upper right-hand corner. You press that. There's something that says share, and that's the easiest way to text somebody an entire episode.
And that exists on Spotify, too. On most platforms, there's a share.
Share.
So if you like what you hear, or if we incense you, either way, tell your friends.
We'll take it. We'll take a download any old way.